for me, I had a real like the pandemic was an epiphany for, I think, for a lot of us. But for me, my epiphany was twofold. The first was I realized that the systems in power have no integrity. That was like the big one. And once I saw it very clearly with my own eyes for the last 2 years, it kind of made me go, okay, you know what I'm looking for then is people with their own integrity. Like, I don't necessarily care if you agree. I don't care. What do you stand for?
Right.
Because I think in tough times that matters more than just about anything else. And I would rather, look, me and you might argue about what color the sky is. I don't care about that, but we might just argue about what color the sky is, right? I don't really care about that. What I care about is that, okay, Joseph A. Michael is a genuine human being, doing the best he can, and hopefully, just treats me with the same courtesy as I treat him. That's it. That's all I hope for. And if you don't, I don't have quite the same patience anymore. I can become that monster and annihilate, but I'm vice versa. I mean, we all need that little part of ourselves to have that. But I also just realized too is I don't know anybody else's shoes but my own. So I can't just, even though it's very tempting to, I try not to put anybody into a box. I'll hear them out. Right now, if they don't give me that same courtesy, that's when I am a little bit more. That's when I get a little antsy. But I'm at that point in my life where it's like, you know what? I really don't get it, and I'm a big enough man to admit it. Right? I don't pretend. Does that make sense?
I think today, like, kindness gets confused with weakness.
Yeah.
I was actually just having this conversation earlier. Like, if you're kind, what's someone's incentive to, like, push all the extra work off on you because they know you're not going to, blow back at them. You're just going to take it. You're not going to say anything, versus maybe giving all the extra work to a jerk who might, like, blow up on them. Then they got to deal with all this, like, hard feelings. So the people that are kind, nice guys and nice girls and everything finished last mentality. I think it's because we just get, I don't know, taken advantage of.
So I've learned a little. Okay, so ask this. We're close in age, but I don't know who's older between us. I'm 40, and you are
equal to you.
Okay, so we're both 40 years old. So I have learned this really wonderful technique. I can, again, treat people how I want to be treated them, but then realize how they're trying to treat me.
Yeah.
And the moment I had this, I had an epiphany about 3 or 4 years ago. People do exactly what they want to do, no matter what.
Yeah.
I had that epiphany. And when I realized that, it made it easier for me to not be mad at a person. What I do, though, is I call them out on their crap. Because it's easier now for me to even do that. I'm not mad exactly, but I call them out on it. So what happens to me is, this is what happens to me. You're a nice guy. It's like, yeah, but I'm not that nice of a guy. And I'm saying it like a nice guy. And then they'll try to push. And then I say, nah, man. Nah. And then they realize they can't. And then they back. Again, most of the time, they back off. I think with the nice guy mentality, you can be a nice person. But you have to learn, especially in a creative business, to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
You have to. That is, like, again, you don't have to be like the evilest person in the world. You don't have to be a jerk about it. But you got to be willing to say no. And especially, I think the years to come, it's going to become more and more a thing for all of us on some level. But yeah, you just got to be willing to say, you know what, I ain't doing it. And you can't make me, I don't care. So go nuts. And I hit that point a long time. I hit that point about a couple years ago. It's like, no, I'm going to do what I damn well please. I'm sorry. I'm not going to try to hurt you about it, but I'm going to do what I damn well please. And I have found bigger peace of mind with that. I can still be that nice guy. And most of the time I am. But I'm also not now at this point. It's just like, I'll call you out on your stuff too. I can do both. It's up to you. And that's how I kind of how I go with it. Does that resonate, or am I on something here?
I think you just reading a page out of my book, so to speak. But no, it's it's weird, like how people associate. I don't know. It's easy to get offended when someone has road rage, or whether they're rude to you in a store. But like you said, they're always acting out their own best interests, right? So maybe they had some kind of issue, health or family-wise or whatever, and it's not you that they're taking that out on. You just happen to be in that same space. But as people that are typically wholly kind guys, kind people. I take it kind of offensively, and I think a lot of people do. And then you just got to have that maturity to be like, you know what, they were having a day. They're going through other issues. It wasn't me or it wasn't Josh that they were singling out and was like, hey, you're less than a human. We're going to treat you like crap today. That wasn't the case. The case was they're just acting out of their self-interest. They got a lot of stuff going on, you know, and maybe if they had a moment to sit down and calm down, they would apologize to us. But it's tough not to take those things personally.
Oh, don't get me wrong. We all have our moments. Like sometimes, right? I mean, again, I could be a nice guy, but I also can be like a not so nice guy too. And I have those moments as well. We all do. I just like, you know, when it's over, I can look back and kind of go, okay, I don't know what kind of day they had. I don't know. And like I said, just because they're having a bad day doesn't mean you have to take their shit either.
Yeah.
Right. There's also that like you know, it's like, no, I get you're having a bad day, but it's not me. Right. And if it really comes right down to it, you can assert yourself. You go, it's like, dude, I get it. You're having a bad day, but it ain't me. Tone down or fuck off, and that's it. And right, you can say, and you can say it just like that.
Yeah.
And it might hackle them up, but it also might make them realize, oh crap, I've seen it too. Like it goes both ways. Sometimes you have to push harder at that point, but sometimes they back down too. Sometimes they just realize, you know what, I'm in the wrong here, and then they tend to. But again, you have to. It's that assertion, right? You have to learn how to do that. And I think artists, as a general rule of thumb, don't want to do that. They would just rather just live and let live. And that's a great way to be, by the way. 95% of the time. 95% of the time, it's a great way to be.
Yeah.
But especially when you get to like the business end of things. You need that other 5%, or people are just gonna walk on you. It's just it's just the nature of the beast, right? You gotta learn that ego you have can protect you in some situations. That anger can protect you in some situations. Now you just can't go to it as a crutch every single time, or you just or you become that person, and that's just shitty. But you can be. How to put this? You can say, you know what? I can turn it on like switch. I can be a dick too, and I can turn it off right when it's over. So you don't.
Bruce Banner, Hulk.
Yeah, exactly. You can be the Hulk for like a minute, right? As long as you're not the Hulk all the time, you're good. You know what I mean? Like you're right. You're good, right? You need that. It's a balancing act, right? I think it's 95-5, maybe 90-10 in some people. Again, depending on how high you go, how much money is involved. I could see that becoming a 90-10. I don't know, you want to go past that, but like I could see you needing that a little bit more. It's just, but again, it's the nature of the business, of the beast. You've just learned that people, for whatever reason, think like nice people are weak. They're not. They're strong. It takes a lot of strength to be kind and gentle. And one of the strongest guys I know, he was a roommate of mine. He was 400 pounds. I mean, solid dude. One of the gentlest people I've ever met. Like, so strong, right? Just such a strong guy, but also one of the gentlest. Like, he knew how strong he was. And so he always tended to take a gentle approach. So I've seen him mad. That's the dude I'll never want to make mad in a million years. But, like generally, nicest, sweetest dude you'll ever meet, right? Right? But kind. Right? Kindness is actually strength, not
for sure.
weakness.
Yeah. It's funny, back in grade school, I had a kid that would always flick my ear. He'd like run past and flick my ear, or he'd do like the thing on your shoulder, like the nerve right there. He'd get me in the nerve and he'd run past me on the playground. And he's just my bully, right? He's my nemesis back in grade school. Until one day I caught his hand on my shoulder and I did a thing like with my arm, like a windmill. And I like dislocated his thumb or something like that out of self-defense, not on purpose. And he never did it again. So it's like, I had a Hulk moment there for 10 seconds. And it kind of was like, don't mess with Joe, because, if you push things, his Hulk will bust out and we don't want to have to deal with that because there's going to be consequences. But 99% of the time, I was the Bruce Banner in school, the nerdy kid, skinny, getting beat up, snot-nosed kid. But when I finally got pushed too far, you got to assert yourself, because otherwise you just, people just take advantage of you. endlessly, because we live in a world of takers, and if they know that they can get something out of Josh, or they know that they can get something out of Joe, and they'll continue to do so until you're like, hey man, I've had enough, or I don't have enough resources to help you out with, or whatever, my time. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I don't think necessarily people are out to get you, but we also, it's weird because we have a very interesting, like the way the world's designed, there's a certain pressure and struggle that's just uniformly nature, right?
Yeah.
Of the world. Not just the United States. I think the whole world has this nature. And one sec. Am I on?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, technical. I knocked the wire out. It's like, training professional.
I was doing my best to read your lips.
Yes. So no, what I was saying is the world, the struggles, there's a discomfort, struggle, I think are necessary things because it forces all of us to change. And as uncomfortable as change is, it's necessary. Change, more than anything else in the world, change is the constant. Not life, not death, change. Right? That's just my take on things, right? That all said, I say it like this as if people sense that you are in pain, this is where human beings can be really cruel. If they sense a weakness like blood in the water, they're going to strike, like sharks or chicks. But when you get a chick that looks a little different, you put it in, all the other chicks peck at it. So there's almost a schoolyard / prison mentality. When somebody pushes you, you must push back, or everybody pushes you. That's just something that is just human nature. You have to sometimes fight for that respect. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that's just the way it is. Should it be that way? I don't know how to get it out of the system completely. I don't think there is a way to fully do that. I just think as a general rule of thumb, the biggest two things to drill into people, I think, when they're young are they're worth something. They're absolutely worth something. And you have to be, and the other thing though, you have to drill into, you have to be willing to quote unquote fight. I'm not talking like putting your fist, but taking a stand for what you're worth.
Yeah.
Right. I've learned this as a freelancer. Right. My price point's everything. I learned this really early on that the cheaper I was, the less respected I was. The more expensive I was.
Literally been through this like 20 times. I'm glad you're saying it.
Well, no, I have. No, it's the truth. My very first client was originally to advertise a Kickstarter. By the way, I will never, ever, ever do that. If I like you, it's expensive. If I really don't know you, it's we're talking FU money, folks. We're talking FU money. But it's because it's the work involved. But I realized that they weren't serious about me because I wasn't serious enough about my price.
Yeah.
Right? I just got a client. I'm doing a video client. I mentioned this off the air. Part of the reason I got it was the price point. They looked at me with respect because of where I was. That's human nature, right? Right. Whatever. If I could work cheaper, it's funny. It's not about the money in the way people think it is. It's not. I mean, yeah, I want to get paid, but at the same time, it's not really about that. It's about I'm doing what I love, and I'm going to protect that. Right. And I'm going to do what is necessary to protect that. So now I'm trying to get more clients. Then I'm going to get busier. And if I get to the point where I'm too busy, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to raise my prices again. That's what's going to happen. And it's going to repeat over and over and over and over. That's how this works. Right. And that's how this works. And it's about self-respect. That's what this is all about at the end of the day. There's no other part of this game. I think if there's one, there are a few things I wish were taught raised in school. That lesson, that lesson should start young, because
Yeah,
then
for sure.
that's just because most of us don't get that lesson until we're in our 20s or 30s.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's preaching the choir, so to speak. Just been through this with a couple clients, and it's like, look, we grew your website from a couple $1,000s to tens of thousands of dollars, and we did it for a fraction of the cost. But before, when I used to help out advertise comic conventions and pop culture conventions, it was like, hey, I love the medium, I'll do it for free. Well, because I was doing it for free or volunteering, they just assumed that all my time is free. So then they started asking, can you build us websites? Can you do this? Can you do that? And it's for free, right? No, that's what I do as a professional, for to make a living, building websites and digital marketing and stuff. So when you value yourself at 5, 10, 20, 25 bucks an hour or whatever, then people expect $0, $5, $10 worth of work. But if you're actually a professional, and you're delivering professional work and you undersell yourself, you're doing yourself an injustice, because they look at you a different way than if you're like, yeah, I'm Josh, I'm $100 an hour, $200 an hour, whatever it is. They're like, whoa, now we have to take you seriously, because, you're not billing us free 5 or 10 bucks an hour. So
No, and wow, I wish I was $100 an hour. I'm not that far into this yet. I know what it's worth. I actually do really know where it's worth. I know where I'd like to get to.
yeah.
That all said, right? I'm high enough where how to put this, someone just getting started in the business that has no concept of advertising will leave me alone.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
That's a good weed out process, by the way.
Yeah, no, it totally is.
Because the people that, want free or want $5 an hour, they don't have the money to invest in their business or the commitment to make it successful. And I was talking to an IP firm in Ohio. They were looking to launch like a mini Shark Tank. And one of the partners was like, yeah, I want to get the other partners to go in, but they have to go all in. I don't do anything half-ass, pardon my French. But
you say as much French as you want on it.
If we do this, we're going all in. We're not going to half-ass it. And I was like 100%. I was like, you would be amazed how many people that are trying to launch startups want to half-ass literally everything. They want to, print everything off of their home copier. They want ragtag graphics. They want, they just want to grassroots, guerrilla market the heck out of everything. And then when they don't have results after 2 or 3 years, they're like, what happened? So people don't equate time with money, so to speak. So they just think that they can continue to launch this business on bootstraps. 5, 10 years down the road, it might work. Well, that's a terrible attitude to start a business with. You need to make sure that you go all in, do it right, so that you can set yourself up for growth and for success.
I will say this is anyway really getting started. This is just as a caveat here. Wherever you're at, it's okay. What we're talking about is like the next level. But whatever you can do, however you can do it, folks, like whoever's listening and watching this or whatever this is over, it's fine. That's totally fine for right now, whatever that looks like for you. But you need to understand that the biggest part of this game is investment in yourself, right? Where I am right now, I'm literally at the starting point. Now, I'm not where I'd like to be, right? But at the same time, I'm building something. And I'm getting results. I'm getting clients. I'm getting work. Because I'm a cocky, confident son of a bitch, in the best way, right? So, and I say it like that. Now, when I get a few more clients under my belt, and I got to the point where I got a little bit more money to invest in some things, I'm going to be looking at places to advertise. I'm going to be looking at places because the name of this game is really simple. It doesn't matter whether you're writing a book, a Kickstarter, or a business. Here's my product. It's awesome and made of cheese. And I'm going to put it, and I'm going to scream that every possible place I can, whatever is in my means to do so, right? And then the places I get the best results are I keep. The ones I don't, I walk away from. Again, there's no hard feelings with it. It's just business, right? But as things grow, as things evolve, as things, right? And as you evolve, that's it. Like, that's the thing. You have to invest. So, but wherever you're at, whether you're here, or we're at the beginning, you go all in with what you got. Never lose that nothing to lose attitude at the beginning, right? Especially as you get farther and farther up in the top, because it's the only way you grow, even in those situations.
Yeah, I've noticed that, the hustle aspect, obviously gets overlooked a lot. And if someone wants to truly make a business work on a bootstrap campaign, and they have 110% investment on the hustle, it'll work. But then you have people coming at it like, oh, we'll throw some money at someone, they'll build me this multi-million-dollar business, we'll just kick back and we'll rake in the profit. Like, that doesn't work.
No.
You got to be fully invested, like you said, whatever that looks like for that individual.
I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine. She's a copywriter. She's coming on the show next week, actually. She's trying to get her first few clients. I'm like, so you know what you need to do? You need to put copywriting on your stuff. You got to make sure you're doing that. Like, I just, like, right before I went on the air here, I actually did my copy for the day, which was I don't know if you saw it, if you did or didn't, which is my little story about confidence a little bit. Right.
Yeah. Your post to Facebook.
Yeah. It was on Facebook. It's also on my LinkedIn. I'm expecting more results on my LinkedIn than my Facebook, to be perfectly honest, because LinkedIn people read a lot more. And that's not saying anything derogatory about Facebook. It's just Facebook has more of a knee-jerk reaction to things. It's a little less like that on LinkedIn, a little bit. It's more, I'm going to read your stuff, and if it's good, I'm going to talk to you, right? That's how LinkedIn works, folks. So, right? So, Facebook, I mean, if people listen, but even so, I'm putting it on Facebook anyway. Why? It's a venue. It's an effort. I'm putting it out there. If I don't sell myself seriously, no one's going to buy me.
Right.
Right? It makes sense, right? Like I look at pro wrestling. Like, pro wrestling is kind of my model for that in one sense, because yes, it's really dumb to see people dressed up in no clothes or weird costumes and stuff like that, talking about how they're going to beat somebody up. But from a sales standpoint, they are invested in their characters, they're invested in their story, and they're telling it to the audience. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not, like, whatever the trappings, who cares? That's what they're doing, right? Yeah. Right. Even a comic, if you sit there and think about, like, a Kickstarter campaign, that's what you're trying to do with a comic. You're telling a story, you're trying to get people invested in your work. And if you don't believe in it, why would anybody else?
Yeah. You see that at conventions. You walk up, Henri Kompan?
I've heard of him, yeah.
He's the dude that does Yi Sun Shin. But he's a legend in the indie comic scene, and he'll go to a convention and he'll sell out of hundreds or thousands of books or graphic novels. That dude believes in his books so incredibly much that you can't help but believe in it when you, like, meet him or walk by his books. Like, it's infectious, right, in a good way. Whereas you got a person that, they might be having a bad day, or maybe they put something out and they don't really, it's like, what's a pitch your book? It's really good book. You just gotta read it. There's some action and stuff, right?
I got, like, a great story for you on this. So Phoenix Comic Con, last time I was at Phoenix Comic Con. So the table to the right of me, really cool, like, organized. They knew their shit. And the first day to the left of me, so that's some big organization, big wigs. They're like, yeah, we got, like, they were working for the Phoenix Suns. So we got this big meeting on Saturday, so we can't be here Saturday, but we're gonna get our buddy who does a comic to come in on Saturday to sell for us. Oh man. So okay, now the guys to the right, oh man, professional. They have their shit. They know what they're doing. I'm having fun. Like I'm selling books here and there. I mean, but it's my first time at the show. So you know how it is. Some shows you do really good, some shows you don't. I was somewhere, I had fun, but it wasn't my best show, right? But it was still fun. The table to the right goes, dude, you're cool. I wish you were beside us all the time. Not because you'll get better with this, but because you're so chill with us. And yeah, the only thing I asked them, because they were so busy all the time, could you move stuff so people can see my table? They did that. That was all I asked them. And they were cool with it, right? The guy to the left. Yeah, he just sat there and did nothing to nobody. Like, I looked at him I'm looking at him. I'm looking, like, to the right of me. I mean, there's me, and then this whole row is amazing. But, like, I'm just looking at everybody else just doing it, and I'm watching him doing nothing. And I'm looking at this. So I had to, because I was right there. I gotta see this comic. Does this comic suck? No, it's not bad. It's good, right? Yeah, pretty good, right? It's a good first book. The executives joined me on my end watching it. It's like I thought he's been doing this all day. I don't understand. And they're looking at him, it's like, yeah, we don't get it either, right? And the next day, the executives, they went all out. They were doing, this was back in the day when the 3D printers were brand new, so they were 3D printing stuff. They had to get like a really, 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 really cute blonde gal with a tank top and like old school Americana. It's like, I had a really fun time Sunday. I really, really did, right? So, but like everybody was selling, but he didn't. Like, and you could tell it killed his business because he had a great book. He like in an environment where you need to engage with people, he wouldn't engage. So I'm like, no wonder you didn't sell any books, because you got to talk to people. You got to believe. If you're just gonna like not look or not even talk or not. How is anybody going to approach your book? I mean, as pretty as a book is, there's lots of pretty books at a convention. Like Armory's great, right? I mean, Ramaturi does great stuff. You do good stuff. David Whalen does good stuff. I'm missing like a whole bunch of people here because my mind just went blank. But there's like a zillion amazing comic creators out there that do great books. And there's some of them are quiet.
Yeah.
You can feel their intensity when they talk about their stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's tough because, I don't know if creatives are naturally introverted as like, a whole, at least the majority of them. So with a comic book, I mean, I kind of feel like if you can make a comic book work like financially, then you could probably go into any industry and probably make that work, because the amount of hustle, you got to be a salesperson. You got to, have the creative wherewithal. You got to tell a story worth telling. You got to be able to have your sales pitch. Like there's so many different hats that you have to wear as a comic creator, no matter if you're a letterer or the writer or the artist or the colorist or the flatterer or whatever. There's so many hats you have to wear, especially if you're going to launch an independent book. Like you got to really step outside of yourself. And you're talking about being in someone else's shoes. Like maybe that's not a talent that you've mastered yet, or that you think that you've mastered. But as a creator who's trying to sell their own property, their own book, like you really got to step outside of your own shoes, and you have to be, 5 or 6 different professions all wrapped into one, right?
That's out of your comfort zone. I wouldn't say out of your shoes, out of your comfort zone, right? You got to learn these things. I have an obnoxiously big mouth, Joseph. I think we can figure this out just 30 minutes into this conversation, right? But I've also got a lot of practice. I've been doing a lot of podcasts.
Right.
So I have that comfort zone of talking to people. So I don't have that issue. My issue, and this is just an honest assessment of where my holes in my game was my presentation.
Yeah.
So now I got to figure it. So again, I look like a civilized man. We all know the truth, but I look like a civilized man anyway. And like I said, I'm confident. I got a little bit of self-deprecation. Like I have a good personality, which will draw people in, as long as I'm honest and authentic and genuine. I'll find a connection with somebody, right? Again, now I may not do as well as Omri does because he's got like quantity of books and the practice he has, but I can find an audience if I just look at it strictly like that, right? It's knowing what you're good at and what you're not. Again, you don't necessarily need to be the loudest guy in the room either, right? Kirk Zauer is a really shy dude, but he's a nice guy. And if he just comes out and he's a nice guy to people, because that's who he is, people can feel it when it's real. You know what I mean? Like people can feel it. And if you're that real, okay, you're not the loudest guy in the room, but you're a good dude. And I want to see what you got. Right. And when you put yourself, like, again, it's finding out how you connect to people. That's maybe the real challenge. But it doesn't require like a larger in life thing. It doesn't require a pro wrestling like brother every like 3 seconds. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. What matters is that what you're doing, you believe in it, and you're presenting it in as honest is not quite the right word, but it's as close as you get, as honest and as genuine and authentically as you possibly can. Yeah. Because if you do that, I think again, you open yourself up to connection. Now, not every show is great. Not every crowd is good, but more often than not, you will find people that you'll get along with. You know what I mean?
That's what they say. Like, if you were just a writer starting and wanting to publish works of fiction, I don't know, fantasy books, 250, 350 page novels, you know, you build those connections with, you know, your core audience, your first 10 readers. And then those 10 readers come back and buy your second book. And then you add 10 more readers. So by the time you put out a 5th or 6th or 10th novel, you know, you have your core group that can kind of support, you know, the minimum level that you need to reach for book sales or whatever. And then that's when a writer can really take off, because, you know, those core group, like your usuals at the bar, right? They rely on those people to come in every night, and they're going to run up, you know, certain bar tabs, so they know they can operate the bar profitably. And then anybody else that comes on top of that is icing on the cake for the establishment as in profit. So yeah, from a creator's perspective, you really have to build that core audience, you know, that you make those genuine connections with, and then hopefully you continue to add as you continue with your career.
Well, I don't think it ever stops. I think that's the one thing that's really important, is it never stops. I think what happens though is as you get bigger, you have less opportunities to do it. Like, I look at someone like Kevin Eastman, right? Big fan of him, but he probably doesn't get the same opportunities to interact with people that you or I get, right? Simply because he's freaking Kevin Eastman, and everybody knows what he's done. Yeah. So he doesn't quite get the same breaks. But I don't know, like the one time I met him, genuinely cool dude, and that's he's on my list of like 10 people I really, really, really want to interview before I hit 1,000. Like, it's one of my 10.
I read that on the other day. You said if anybody knows Kevin or something, send him to the show or whatever.
Yeah, no, because I again, why not, right? I've had Kelly Armstrong, I've had Spider Robinson, I've had some pretty big people come on the show. I've had some people, like some surprising people, buy my books. Yeah. Right. I don't know if you know who Diana Gabaldon is, but she's actually bought one of my books. So it's kind of cool. So it's like when you have that, it's like, that's a cool moment. Yeah. Right. All right. So why not ask? And that's the other thing too about this crazy little world of ours, is you can ask for cool shit and sometimes you get it.
Yeah. Right? If you don't ask, the answer is always no, right?
Exactly.
So you at least have to ask, because, you know, maybe 9 out of 10 people won't even ask. So now if you're 1 out of 10 that are actually asking, and even if it's a 5% chance, at least you got a 5% chance and it's not 0.
And even if you get a no, that's okay too, because you didn't lose anything really. In fact, even in the no, you gained. They're not going to do it again. Hey, that's cool. I don't have to chase them anymore. I'm never going to wonder. I know. That's actually comforting. I mean, I'm a little dejected when I get no's, but I mean, it's not. But I would rather that than chasing and wondering, and right.
So are you okay with just a no and like no reason, or would you appreciate a no and it's like, you know, I'd love to do it, but XYZ?
I'm okay with just a no. Once upon a time, I would have been less okay with that. But I'm actually, again, that epiphany a few years ago about people doing what they want to do makes it really, really easy for me. I actually, like, the person I was supposed to do the show tonight canceled, and we were going to go reschedule, and she's like, I just can't do this right now. And I was like, okay, do what you want. And I don't mean that like a malicious way, right? It's just that, again, and this isn't a knock to them either. They have priorities, and I'm not one of them, and that's fine. I don't need to be the priority. Now, slight ego thing, sure. But at the same time, you know, grown-ass man. I mean, you're not going to get everything you want in this world. You don't need to get everything you want in this world. What matters is that your job isn't necessarily to worry about the result, right? Your job is to worry about doing the best you can, and that's not quite the same thing. And that's the rub. I've learned. I don't know. Maybe I'm settling too much. Maybe I'll get your opinion on this. I learned that my job isn't necessarily to succeed or to fail. My job is to try my best. And I know it might sound like a really lame answer, but it's like, no, seriously, like, have you ever really thought about what your best entails? The presentation, preparation, the work you have to put in to put yourself in that chance to succeed, whatever that is, right? Every day you got to do that. Like, there's an effort, a conscious effort to do that. Whatever you choose to do, it doesn't have to be one thing or the other thing or the other thing. It's just you have to make that effort, whatever that effort is, and that's your job. And the rest is God's grace and you know, a little bit of luck, and that's fine, you know. But your job is to put yourself in the best position to succeed. Success is never guaranteed, nor is failure, right?
Yeah.
It's that exact moment of, okay, is this the best spot? This is the very best I can do. And if it's the very best I can do, I can live with it. It doesn't matter what it is. I can live with it. I'm sometimes still kind of annoyed, but I'm being real about that. Like, oh man, it's like, for last freelance thing I went to hand in, right? I couldn't get away to scan that last image properly. There's nothing I could do. I tried everything I could. So on one hand, I'm happy with it. But on the other hand, I'm annoyed it was something that small that got in the way of my success. So next time, I'm going to be better prepared. But I feel like if the worst crime I can do is I wasn't ready for that moment yet, I'm doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm. So if I asked you to define success, would your definition be to do the best of your ability?
I think okay, I'd be lying if I'd said that results didn't mean anything. I would be lying. But what I really think, what I really think is, in the process, I kind of can feel like success is kind of like a baseball batting average. It's about just, okay, am I swinging at the bat? If the answer is yes, okay, am I swinging it in the best way I know how to? So like literally, these are my two questions. Am I swinging at the bat? Yes. Okay, that's good. Am I swinging at the bat the best way I know how? Yes. Am I, and in between the swings, am I learning to get better at my swings? Right, and that's it. I consider it's success. Many of my successes that have been like they're not magic, like something boom, you're there.
Mm-hmm.
They've been, I'm doing a thing, and sooner or later people lose.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Almost like very few of us get that grand slam of the first pitch. It does happen, but very few of us do get that. But we start hitting singles, doubles, triples, walks on base. We get beamed by the ball sometimes. Sometimes we strike out. But we're swinging. And what I find is it just through the sheer quantity of swings, you get results. Now, maybe that's not how it works for everybody else, right? I've hit some accidental home runs. I'll say that. Like I wasn't planning on them being home runs, but that's what happens when you take the swing at the bat. You don't know where the ball's going to go. And that's the best thing about life. That doesn't mean I don't have goals. That doesn't mean I don't have things I'm aspiring to. That doesn't mean I don't, but I'm not. The other big lesson I learned about the pandemic is never be wed to an idea. Never be wed to an idea. If I can make you convinced of it, like, you know this, you're in advertising. If I sell you on the idea, I got you. Right? Getting you to getting you off that idea is damn near impossible. It can be done, but it's really, really hard. Advertising sells ideas for this reason, because if I bought you to buy into the idea, I got you.
Yeah.
The counter to this is don't be attached to any particular outcome. If you can give yourself the out of, I'm not going to worry about the outcome, but I'm not going to be attached that it's going to work out this particular way. I give myself a better chance to pivot, to roll, to evolve. If I'm wedded to an idea and I'm wrong, you're going to have a hell of a time getting, and this is not just me, it's human nature. You're going to have a hell of a time getting anybody to walk back off that ledge because they've already made that leap, right? So that's why advertising idea, like being so attached to an idea, is dangerous, because it can mess you up. But if you're detached from all ideas, you have an open mind, and you can still be disappointed, but you're not going to be so married to that thing.
Mhm.
You'll be able to let it go easier and go to the next thing. Is that, I don't know if I answered your question exactly, but I hope that.
Actually, I was going to ask you two things. One, did you see A League of Their Own?
No, I did not.
Okay, so it's got like Madonna in there, and it was about a female, pro baseball team or semi-pro baseball team, or whatever.
Yeah, it was an all-female team. I remember that.
Yeah, and when you look at that, the way that the story progresses, you get to see them like in their prime, and then you get to see them as like older, women or ladies or whatever, and you get those two glimpses of like the glory days, and then the glimpse of this is what it's like after the glory days are over, and you kind of feel like there's like an emotional, like I don't know, sympathy or something that you kind of look at that, and you're like, man, that sucks, because you saw them in their prime, and then you saw them in their old dealing with older age, and maybe some friends passed away and they had to let go and stuff like that. And like you said, you don't get success overnight. It's all about the singles and the doubles. And it's easy for us to look at like Kevin Eastman and the success that he had and be like, oh, I can jump into comics and next year I can have a best-selling comic book. And that's so unrealistic, because like, honestly, just the amount of effort to put into a Kickstarter, to have one successful Kickstarter campaign and then run a multiple one, and then you keep building that following until eventually your 5th or your 10th Kickstarter campaign, you break even or you make a profit. But that didn't happen overnight. It's hours and hours of creating and storyboarding and marketing and going to conventions and networking. So it's easy to look at Kevin Eastman and be like, he's a down-to-earth guy. Why can't I have that success? And why can't I have it next year or within 2 years? So, it takes a long-term mindset. And I think a lot of people have that short-term mindset, right? They want the home run, they want the grand slam at their first at bat, rather than going and hitting a bunch of singles, doubles, some strikeouts, some walks, some more strikeouts.
I'd rather singles and doubles than the home run right off the bat. You want to know why? Because then you fall into the trap of not just Kevin Eastman, but Eminem and all these guys are hit it right off the bat, right? Yeah. Well, now what do I do, right? Because you hit it, right? You're not like you get that hit, you get that story, you get that block. But yeah, it's awesome. It's a great problem to have, because you have Kevin Eastman, Ninja Turtles in the 80s, man. We both grew up with that shit. We both love it. I still love that stuff. I still got the comic to this day because I still love that stuff, right? But at the same time, there are highs and lows in his career, because again, where does he go from there? Like, where do you go from there, right? You did it, and you did it on the first try, right? Yeah. It's just like, that's a hard thing to wrap around your brain. It's really hard. Successes can be more crippling than failure, actually, in some ways. Like, learning to succeed as a journey. Like, this reason why the singles, the doubles, the strikeouts and stuff are important is you learn how to succeed. And what's important is because once you get there, it's about like maintaining that's hard, right? We can fluke into success. It's possible. I'm not saying it's realistic or whatever, but it's possible. Staying there requires real work.
Yeah.
Right. It just does. So you have to recognize like, okay, Eastman's still a big deal, but he's not the big deal he was in the 80s and 90s either. He's, again, still a big name, still a big draw, and Lord knows I'd love to meet him. I mean, I'm a fan. Like, I'm under other 40-year-olds that like me, that fanboy about that stuff. But it's also like, he's not in the days of the Ninja Turtle movie craze. He's not in the days of the cartoon series or the toy lines. They still exist. They're still there, but it's not as like, it's not that big one. Now it's just like, he's got a steady wave that's really good. And again, any creative would love to have that. Anyone, right? But you learning how to deal with that when you're at the very top. That's so hard. What context do you have? Like, where do you go? Like that's such a that's where imposter syndrome can really do you in, because it's like, how did I get here? And if you don't know, it's like, oh shit. Like, right? That's it, right? But if you do your singles, your doubles, your triples, your strikeouts, you get beamed with the ball, you do walks, you're learning how these pitches work. You're learning how the game's played. And so when you get there, hopefully, I'm going to fingers cross this with people, you're wise enough to realize how hard you work to get there. And you'll be smart enough to enjoy the process while you're in that apex, whatever that is.
I feel like I'm playing a Final Fantasy game.
Yes.
Where, you know, you like, I don't know, have you ever played Final Fantasy 2 or 3? Like, you grind out level after level, just hacking and slashing, building up a few dollars, and you finally like get a powerful armor. And
Yeah.
it was like all the pain and anguish and hours that you spent getting all those rupees or gold or whatever to acquire that item. You know, that was what, you know, it was all about, I think, you know, giving you that wherewithal, giving you the metal. So when you finally got there, you know, you're like, I deserved this because I literally spent 3 hours slashing pink bunnies in the Crystal Palace. But no, I think it much applies to.
What did you have against pink bunnies, Joe? What's your thing with the pink bunnies?
That the pink bunny was the one that hid in the one Crystal Palace dungeon, and they were impossible to find. And you had to walk around in circles for hours and hours and hours to finally get into a battle with one. And that stuck out for some reason. I remember doing that for hours and hours of my youth. But no, I think it's that process that makes the success sweet, right? Rather than just hitting the lottery and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm here, millionaire.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's a cool high too. I'm going to say initially, it's a cool high. It's like when the high is done and it sinks in what you've just done. Yeah, right. Look, man. If you wake up one day and you're looking at your book and you're seeing something like 2 million copies sold, you're probably going to be like, I like, what happened? I'm going to go party because I don't know what else. Like, this feels great. But then when you wake up from your hangover the next day, you're going to be like, okay, so I did this. And then you got to seriously think there, now what do I do? Right. And because, again, there comes that expectation. You got that hit once. Right. Whereas if you're coming up and you get to, I look at someone like Colleen Durant as a really good model in the comic industry of how to become very successful. Very smart businesswoman, but she struggled. She went through the grind. She had her ups, had her downs. Right. And now she's doing like Neil Gaiman short story graphic novels right now, which is, yeah, it's a pretty sweet gig. Right. So, and she's earned it. Like the fact of the matter is, if you look at her body of work, it speaks for itself. Like, she's one of the best in the business. But she didn't get that overnight. Boom. She created her own work. It got noticed. She got led to her getting other works. She had her ups, she had her downs. She went through like a ton of shit, because we all do. But she kept going. She didn't let anything stop her, and she became a very, like, she's a massive commercial success in comics. That didn't happen in a year. It happened over a lifetime. And again, she's earned it. This is what she wanted to do, right? That is the whole of like any kind of pathway you want to follow. You get, like, most of the time, it's like you think you do it because it's easy. I wanted to be a tour superstar, like a tour like novelist way back when I was a kid. I wanted to be Robert Jordan. Now I don't want to be Robert Jordan. I want to be like, but that was the dream. It's like I'll get my books out and I'll be rich and shameless. I'm one of the two already. I'll let you figure out which one. Right? But the thing about that is, right, like, then there comes a point sooner or later where there's work, and then it's like, do you really want it? And I think this is just my opinion. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm sure I'd have to talk to people who are really more successful than me. If you didn't enjoy the process, right? I think the process we're going through now will make it more enjoyable when we get there.
Yeah.
I don't know the ride will last long or what. I don't know. I think for everybody that's a different answer.
Yeah.
But the fact that you even get to go on the ride at all, right? That in itself is an amazing blessing. And if you can just go through it and have the tenacity to go through all the punches and stuff and shit you go through and just do it. And I felt like I just did a Nike commercial there, but anyway, that's okay. But it's really that simple, right?
They're going to clip out this part of the video and they're going to insert into a Nike commercial.
That's right. That's right. We are now going into the Nike era. Michael Jordan just slam dunking in your face, right? It's just like, but I think that's what it is. I think it's the ability to enjoy it, because you build up your expectations over time. Whereas if you get the big hit at the beginning, like, how do you, like, again, did Eminem really ever talk about that? Did he ever really top My Name Is? You can make that an argument that he never did, right? I would argue he did, but I don't think. But again, I think like he hit an apex too, like everybody does. Like, okay, I don't know what else I'm gonna do from here. Now what do I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's people subscribe to, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, right? And I don't know how the split is, but I imagine a lot of people just want the hit, where you have some people that they want to experience the journey, and the trials by fire make you that much stronger, and I think make the reward at the end that much more rewarding, right? Do you subscribe to that?
I do, but I also think this. I don't. Life's not fair. This is the other thing I subscribe to. I may never get that hit, and that's something you got to kind of like contact. I'm not saying that I'm going to quit or anything like over that, but it's like, you know what? I might be the guy that is in front of an audience of 12, and it's my audience. It's still my audience. I'm not ungrateful for it, but that might just be as big as I get. Then again, maybe I fill a stadium of people with my books. Right? I don't got much control over that, really. I can just put myself out there. That's all I can do, right? But I can do everything correctly and still not get that big success.
Yeah,
I can do that. Life is that way. But then again, I can screw up completely and get everything.
Mm-hmm.
Life does that too. So it's one of those things where I'm okay with it being unfair. I'm okay. I mean, I actually think the unfairness stacks the odds in my favor, to be perfectly honest with you, because life's not fair. Well, I don't know about you, good sir, but I am definitely a bit of a royal fuck up sometimes. And, the fact that life is so unfair means I get second chances. I think it gives you more chances to succeed. So I think overall it's actually a good thing that life's unfair, but you have to accept that too. Like, you may never get to exactly where you think you're going to go, but that doesn't mean like you don't end up in someplace cool. I accidentally got traditionally published. Like, it was an accident. I didn't plan it. It happened. So sometimes these accidents are really cool. Sometimes these accidents are not so cool. But even so, right, it's one of those things is life's unfair. And that's a great thing. And a lot of people don't think of it like that. It's like, well, life's not fair. It's like, yeah, that means you can fuck up and get another chance. Take the win. Take that win.
I guess it's what you do with that failure, right? That really truly defines you and your success. There's a meme that circulates on the internet. I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's two guys and they have pickaxes. Have you seen this one? And they're picking along, and one guy turns around at the last second, right before the huge like shaft of diamonds, and the other guy is still picking along. And it said something like, "Don't quit, because you never know how close you are to the breakthrough or the success or whatever."
It's true. No, it's so true. Right.
And it's that's one of those, you said 2 years ago you had that revelation, right, of kind of how you knew people operated, right, in their own best interest, and it wasn't anything that you as Josh had to take personally. So I think that we pick up these little axioms through our life, like this: you never know how close you are to that breakthrough. Don't take things that other people say or do personally, because they're acting out of their own best interest, and not to screw Josh or screw Joe. I think those are little pieces of armor that we pick up along our path, our Final Fantasy, make us tougher and more resilient, so that you can continue to push through to whatever your dream is, whatever your goal, whether it's the diamond mine or the crystal armor in Final Fantasy, or the best-selling novel that fills the stadium. It's building up your armor, your mental armor, and knowing to brush that off, because if you let that impact you, you let that affect you, you carry that guilt with you, that stress, that pain, then it inhibits you from doing your best. And ultimately that's where we want to be, right? We want to be able to do our best.
Mostly I agree with that. The only thing I'd add to that is sometimes the diamond mine we imagine is not the diamond mine we end up with.
True.
All right. And that's not a bad thing. Like I said, I accidentally, so my very first book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called The Watcher. It's traditionally published. That was never the plan. Also, that book was never the plan. I wanted to do like a poetry collection, like a little collection of poems. I wrote this like longer poem, and it was called The Watcher. Like chapter 1 is literally called Watcher, and I read it. I really liked it. It's like, okay, he's looking out into the horizon and wondering what's out there. He's got these dragon masters in this compound with his family. It's like, it's an interesting, like, I wrote it as seat in my pants, right? And it was like, okay, this is really freaking cool. So what happens next? So in the second one, he kills his dragon master. I'm like, okay, I gotta know what happens next. I just like, how do you like? So his first night in the woods alone, after just killing somebody and coming to terms with that, it's like, wow, still some of my favorite stuff I've ever written. Then chapter 4 went to chapter 5, and then I realized that this is my poetry collection. Whatever I was doing there, no, that's not important. This is important. I get to the end. I go to a comic shop. I find a friend. I used to work at a Kinko's Act. She's doing comics now. So I see if she gets to do some illustrations for it. It's like, okay, so my master plan, this is it. This was all my plan, Joe. I was going to put this on Smashwords, right? And I was going to make copies to sell at conventions. That was my entire plan. So I put it on Smashwords. Someone I interviewed a long time ago goes to me, I really like this. What are you going to do? And I said, I just told you. And then she goes to me, well, I'll tell you what, I'm starting a publish. I just made a deal with Ingram Spark. I'm starting a publishing house. I'll publish it. And that is how you accidentally write and accidentally get published traditionally. Right here. That's me. The diamond mine I imagined was not the diamond guy I got. But I think we can both agree, so pretty cool. Well, again, don't fall in love with the outcome. That's the one thing I will say. That doesn't mean the diamond, like, you may not get the diamond mine you imagine. You might get something better, but you have to be open to that possibility. The other thing, and the only other thing I will say, it's also okay to quit. If Joseph A. Michael tomorrow, you've written every story, you just felt like you said everything you wanted to say, wherever you're at, and you said, you know what, I'm good. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's not that you didn't wonder. You did everything you thought you could. There are people who do that, and that's not a crime, right? I think that's fair. Here's what I think. This is where I think quitting sucks. It's hard. And that's when you want to walk away, because it's hard.
Yeah.
That's when you cheat yourself. If you do everything and you think it's like, I've done everything I'm going to say, or I think it sucks, or I think this, or this, right? If you think it sucks, or you think you've said everything you're going to say, then you should walk away. Honestly, be smart. Quit then, right? If that's what you want to do, right? I'm not saying that that's what you want to do, but you know what I mean? But if it's because it's hard work, or if it's because it's difficult, or it's a trial, stick it out. Just stick it out, because you will always wonder what could have been. Yeah. Whereas the other two ways, you knew exactly what it was, and that's why you left. That's okay, right?
I feel so. There's a culture in entrepreneurship, especially on the West Coast. It's called fail fast and fail often. So basically, you start out with a concept. You want to make donuts or whatever. Or you want to make espresso-based donuts, and whatever, that concept doesn't work. But having the flexibility to pivot and saying, okay, instead of making coffee-based donuts, I make coffee-based donut holes or whatever, and then that catches on. But that flexibility that you were able to not be married to that original idea and be like, this is the only idea I have, and it's gonna work or bust. But being able to be flexible and pivot, it's a very undervalued asset in the entrepreneurial community, and especially in like Silicon Valley. Some of the greatest successes have been because there's been a small tweak or a small pivot where someone kind of went a different direction than they originally set out with, and had huge successes. But if they were too narrow-minded and they didn't see the potential, or like you said earlier, someone gets married to your first pitch in like an advertising pitch or whatever, and it doesn't work for some reason, but they still are married to that pitch no matter what. It's hard to get them to see anything else. So having that ability to be flexible and to be able to pivot, that's a hugely undervalued ability in the advertising world, in digital marketing, in Silicon Valley, and entrepreneurship. So,
well, let me put it to you like this, okay? Look at comics right now. Your goal could have been to get into traditional publishing and comics, and that still might be one of your goals. There's no crime in that. Although I would ask today, are you sure that would be what you want? But considering all the options that are out there today, it's not needed the same way anymore. So, but if you still want to do it, I mean, God bless you, man. I'm not going to tell you don't, right? But but the thing is, you could have been so married to the idea of going to DC, Marvel, Boom, Image, Dark Horse, wherever, and you would have been like, this is what I'm going to do or nothing else, and none of your books would have been off the ground. Mm-hmm. Now, it may not look like what you imagine it with your Kickstarters right this minute, but here's where it could lead. Hey, you want to do a cartoon series? Do I? Hey, you want to do a video game? Is it going to be like Final Fantasy and have pink bunnies in it? Yes. Yes. And you're like, I'm in. Right? The thing is, the fact that you have the material out there, it will get like the fact that you still have it out there, that you have your own brand, your own community, your own comic book culture that you've created yourself. One, it gives you leverage if you do decide to go in traditional publishing. Two, right? Whether they want to give it to you or not, it's like, okay, well, it's like this. This is what I want, or I'm rocking because I already got this, right? So, and that's cool. That's a cool leverage point, right? So, but the other part about that is, right, because now you've done this, you've opened yourself up to more stories because you're telling them, and two, I mean, we talked last time. You're doing some, like you've gone a very interesting road yourself that probably a lot of creatives have never even thought about. And who knows where that will lead you in the future, right? And that's not a bad thing, man. I mean, I might be talking to you in 5 years. I mean, you might be the guy with his comics in every hospital. That's a heck of a win from where I sit, right? I'm not saying I want to see everybody. I want everybody just to only see them in the hospitals, but the fact that they might be the book that supports cancer survivors, supports people in need, supports people struggling, you give them that little bit of escape and hope. Dude, there's not many people that can sit that might be able to say that. You might, like you legitimately might be able to say that in a couple years. That's freaking cool. That may not have been like the diamond mine you originally imagined, but as far as legacies go, there's not many better, honestly.
I think we talked about that last time. You're like, if that's the end goal, like if you guys get to the point where you're like, hey, I'm doing this, we're encouraging people, inspiring people. Like, are you good with that? Is that your win? And I think we all said, at least me and Donovan, yeah, I mean, we think that'd be a pretty big win, just from a standpoint of doing good, right? Not just, maybe there's no financial success associated with it, whatever.
I think there could be. I think there could be in that too. I think there should be also in that as well. That's one of those things where maybe you're not completely a nice guy, but that would be just my advice because what you do is valuable. But that's neither here nor there. That's neither here nor there. But what you're saying, like in terms of doing good, having books out that inspire people going through whatever the case may be, get them out of their hole. Like, we talked about that a little bit last time, right? Again, that's a pretty freaking cool diamond mine. That is a really, really freaking cool diamond mine. And honest to God, like, again, you're still getting comic read by millions of people, just not maybe in the place you imagined it to be.
Right.
But who cares? You're still getting millions of people to read your stuff, right?
I think that's I don't know. Life is like that, right? You have your eyes set on one thing, and you finally break through, and you're like, okay, I'm here for the golden treasures or the diamonds, and it's it's something completely different. But it's your holy grail, right? But you just didn't know it because, you know, you were still on your journey until you had that breakthrough, and then you realize, yeah, actually, this is kind of cool. This is good for me.
If you had told me I would have broken into traditional publishing with epic poetry, I would have been like, "You're kidding, right? Never would have imagined that in a million years." Here I am, right? But that's okay, right? I did a Gilgamesh style epic, and for my whole goal was to just put it on Smashwords and have something easy to do at a convention. Little did I know, right? And then, right, but those are the best kinds of accidents. And again, it's about recognizing, yeah, failing fast is huge, but also just realizing that, hey, once you put it out in the world, you're not fully in control of it anymore. And that in itself is an amazing thing. So you should just let the ride kind of ride its way out, because the more you try to control it, the less impact you can have with it. You know what I mean? So I would rather like, okay, I got this epic poetry thing. Cool. That's cool. So now I'm like, okay, where else can I take this thing? Maybe I'll go to movies like theaters, like full theaters, or like performances like that, and go, you know what? That's pretty freaking cool, right? Because yeah, you know, because why not? Why not see where else I can take it? But I mean, I made it. It's real. You made your stuff. It's real. I mean, where can't you take it, right? Right? You might as well see where and what you can do with it. And really, do you care if it's people like me that are coming to you conventions, or people that you've helped, like give hope to? I think the latter's a bigger win, honestly. But not that I'm saying I'm not cool, but I'm just like, just being real when I say that, right? Just like life's funny. It never looks like what you imagined it was going to look like. And I actually have this tendency to think at this point in the ball game, it's probably for the best, because I think kind of small compared to how sometimes life works. So I realize, like, sometimes you only want small things, but it just don't work that way. You just kind of just gotta go with it,
It's so important. I mean, I think it's one of the debates that rages with creators through the centuries is, do I wait until the pie is perfectly baked to finally release my grand opus? Or, should I just put out as much work as I can, no matter what, level of finish it is, just to have something existing in the world and say, hey, I created this. So now someone can go and look at, something that you created, even if it isn't the most polished egg in the dozen, but now it's something that Josh published or Josh has out there, and then they can look at that, and then they can see the next thing you created. And then maybe that's your, evolution as a creator, as a writer, artist, whatever. And that improvement is in and of itself value, right? To see how you improve from your first novel to your second novel, your first comic book to your second comic book. And it's kind of like a time capsule, so to speak, of, hey, this is where, I was when I began my career, and this is where I am in my current, state of my career.
Do you ever get to the point where you look at your stuff sometimes and you cringe and you go, "Ooh, I did that. It's me." Yes. But again, I subscribe to the baseball approach, right? I'd rather swing at every pitch and fail than not swing at enough pitches.
Yeah.
Right. I think especially when you get started, I think that is the right approach, because I think once you understand what you're good at, then you can kind of pick your swings a little bit more. I think that, and then you can go, okay, that curveball, I never hit that curveball ever. You know what? I only going to swing at it once in a while, so I can trick somebody, right? When I'm playing the pitcher, so I can fool the pitcher every once in a while, right? That's why I'm swinging at it. I'm not swinging at it for any other reason, because if I swing at it, I'm probably going to miss. So I suck at that one. But that fastball, I love that crap. Come on, feed me that fastball right on, right? That right across that pipe. Corners don't matter. I'm gonna hit that thing. I'm gonna break this bat. It's gonna be beautiful, right? And that's the thing, right? You learn what your pitches are. But I think getting started, yeah, man, don't be afraid. Like don't be afraid to suck. When I started drawing, that was like the biggest lesson I learned from that. I was terrified of sucking. And then I had, again, one of your epiphany parts. So what if you suck? I'm like, I thought about that for a second. Yeah, so what if I suck? I got the draw with Mark Park. I've gotten the draw with Elsa Garza, Mel. I've gotten the draw with like Dave Whalen. I've gotten the draw with like William Holland. I've gotten to draw with like Bill Maws. So, not bad for a guy who sucks. I got to draw with these people. That's pretty freaking cool. So, and they've all taught me stuff too. So it's like I've gotten I'm going to say this. I've gotten competent, Joe. I've gotten competent, right? To the point that my next novel release is actually going to have illustrations by me in the novel, right? So yeah, which I never thought I'd do in a million years, and I'm scared to freaking death. But it's okay. This particular story, my skill level being where it is, actually works for me. But that's neither here nor there. What matters is right, is the fact that you can't be afraid to just go for it. And here's the other thing too: you swing at every pitch, by default, you get better. By default, yeah, right? By default, right? Now, like I said, eventually you get smarter and you figure out what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And sometimes it's about improving your craft. Sometimes it's about just veering away. Like, let's say, for example, you suck at team books. I'm not saying you do, but let's say you suck at team books, right? Well, then then maybe you shouldn't do too many team books, right? You just shouldn't. But you realize that after you've tried it 3 or 4 times, and you realize I get lost in my own script, and my fans are confused, but they really like this stuff. So again, you narrow your pitches down a little bit, and that's fine. At that point, you have an idea of what you're good at and what you're not. And then somewhere down the line, you might say, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna make a good team book. I'm gonna figure this shit out. Then that's when you go through the same process of trying everything under the sun again and again, you may never be great at it, but that's not the point at that point. Now you're just doing it to challenge yourself and get better, right? And that's a different goal. But yeah, especially at the beginning, guys, you're gonna suck and it's gonna be glorious, and go for it. Just go with it.
Yeah, there's the fear of failure and the fear of success, I think, keeps a lot of people paralyzed in both ways, because they're like, well, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. So what do? I just don't act. And that's the worst thing you can do, is just to not act, right?
Remember what I said when I said change was the constant?
Yeah.
So fear. So this is a Canadian quarter. I'm sorry. It's not as cool as yours. So there's heads and there's a tail. We say heads is success, tails is failure. They're the same coin and the same fear at the end of the day. They're a fear of change. Failure is the fear of doing your very best and not going anywhere. Fear of change, fear of lack of change. Fear of success is the fear of expectations, the fear of change, the fact that life will now be different because you did this wonderful thing, right? And life is, the more cool shit you do, the more your life changes. It's just that is how life works. So now if you do nothing, you stay perfectly still, and then you're dead. And I mean that like not literally, but like metaphorically speaking, you're not changing, you're not growing, you are stagnating. And that's just how the world works. Life is change. And failure and success are the two sides of the coin when it comes to it. So understanding what those fears are. If you fear failure, you fear that you're not good enough to make a change. If you fear success, you fear the expectations that come with change. They both can be paralyzing, but ultimately it's the same fear. Life is change. Accept it. Yeah.
That's a big life lesson, man. That's that could be its own series, right?
Oh yeah, no, totally. I say change is the constant, not death. Like change is, life is change, and that's a very terrifying thing. And we've already talked for an hour. We could literally talk an hour on just the nature of change.
Yeah,
and it would still barely scratch the surface. But the big thing is everything's gonna move whether you move or you don't.
Yeah,
that's just the bottom line. So, do you want to be part of it or not? And by the way, there's no wrong answer to that, as long as you're conscious about the decision you're making.
Right.
If it's an unconscious decision, then yeah, it's not good. But if it's a conscious one, if you go to me, like I said, let's say I'm advertising videos. Let's say tomorrow I go, I'm sick of this shit, right? I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to have to go do a fishing boat and start fishing at that point, but that's okay. It's a simple life, if nothing else, right? So, you know, I had that's a conscious decision. Or if I become suddenly afraid to make a video, or if I'm reluctant, or I'm worried about these expectations, or something to that effect, anyway, right? Well, now I'm sabotaging myself, and that's a very unhealthy space to be in. Like I said, there's no wrong answer to in our career, to a career in the comics, career in music, career in writing. If you say to the world, I'm going to be a part-time creator, and by that I'm going to work part-time down this, and I'm going to work full-time on my job because I love my family, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of artists that do that. If I want to make a living as an artist, that means I'm going to make my living as an artist. I'm not going to, like, and again, that might open up other doors along the way, but that's my living. That's who I am. I'm going to approach it in a very consciously deliberate way. And I guess that what I'm saying is, you have to be deliberate with how you deal with change. That might be the whole secret of life, is you must be deliberate with change. If you're not, that's when things bite you in the ass.
They actually talked about how the way businesses responded to the pandemic was a huge indicator of like their future success. So a lot of people like they pivoted their business models, and there was restaurants that were like, no, we're not doing anything different. We're just gonna continue to do what we do. Then there's restaurants that pivoted to do more drop off orders and deliveries and stuff like that, and they actually picked up a lot of market share in that space. So then when the pandemic receded, they emerged stronger because they were able to pivot to kind of see the future and plan ahead. So it's kind of like what you do during those times when we're paralyzed by fear. Do you continue to not act, and then you're wholly impacted by whatever the pandemic or whatever's going on, or did you change and improve during those hard times so that when you come out of the fire, you're battle tested and you're even stronger than you were when you entered?
Yeah, there's that. Okay, there's that. It's going to be interesting to think now that the pandemic is, COVID's going to be around for who knows. But let's be honest, I think the pandemic part of this is done pretty much, except in Canada because we'll do that another day. But as a general rule of thumb, okay. Now we're going to go through another. Let's be honest, the inflation. We all know where the inflation's ultimately going to lead. So here's what I think is going to happen. This is my thing. I think the survivors on the next go around, it's going to be back more heavily towards customer service. Right. The one thing about coming out of the pandemic right now is I'm noticing that a lot, not everywhere, but some places are still really terrible at customer service because they're getting used to having people in again. And some places are great at it. And the thing about that I realize is like, okay, so maybe during the pandemic, the guys that were doing the deliveries and not really doing the hardcore customer service stuff were right in that time. But now you have to pivot again. You have to lean more back into customer service a lot more because times are going to get hard again. Now, there are opportunities in that situation to make money, to make a market share and impact. Because no matter how bad things get, people are going to spend money to, I'm not going to say self-medicate in like drugs and alcohol way, but they're going to find books. They're going to find things to do to escape the tough times. That's just how it works. Whether we binge watch a bazillion TV shows, or whether we read books, or whether we like whatever the case may be, we're going to look for reasons to do it. The people with the best, that create the best awareness of that they're out there, and the people that create the best service are going to win in the next hard time, because those are going to be the correct strategies, I think, coming out. And the places that are less people friendly are going to get reamed. That's my guess. That's my bet. So what do you think? Am I on something, or am I onto something?
Yeah, there's that pendulum swing where everyone runs to one side of the boat, but then the smart people run to the other side of the boat, because if you stay on that side of the boat, you'll capsize. Yeah. And just like fashion too, it comes back in waves in what 25, 50, 75 year increments. So 80s fashion or 90s fashion or whatever makes comebacks, and you have to be able to embrace the fact that, okay, this might be the right pivot to make during this time, but we also have to be flexible to pivot back in the other direction if it's required to meet whatever the demands are of the changing times. So
yeah, and that's kind of what I think is happening. Is I think now the pendulum's going to go the other way, because it has to. Because again, now there's going to be competition for, okay, family might only have $50 to spend on a week for entertainment, so it might be between a board game and a book,
yeah.
right? Who's the better service, right? And that might sound like, but anybody listening to this show that's creating stuff right now, especially on Kickstarter, thinking about like Kickstarters, that's what you got to think about going forward in the next year or two, because the next year or two are going to be, but now after the next year or two, it'll get easier again. But the next year or two, it's going to be rough. But if you're advertising, if you let people know you're out there, if you are willing to still be of service, of some providing a service and being, and I'm sounding like a business person with creativity. It is. This is the nature of you're in customer service, folks. That's what you're in. It's just how you do it is differently. And the real game at the end of the day comes down to customer service. The restaurants during the pandemic that pivoted to deliveries were still providing service. They just came up with a way to do it. Now that, again, by and large, the pandemic's over, that same service, while some of that is still there, there's going to be now more of a pivot to go back into, okay, I'm in a restaurant right now. I'm talking to people. If you're behind a glass cage, while I might understand your reasoning behind it, are you as serviceable as, say, the people without those glass cages? Because those ones seem friendlier. And these are things like you got to legitimately think about in Kickstarter. Okay, people, there's still going to be people that want to spend stupid money, so I'm gonna cater to that. But there's going to be people that don't have a ton of money. So how do I cater to that? Right? And these are just things to think about right now, because you can see which way the boat's going. So you might as well, like, again, you want to avoid that capsize, as you relatively put that. So that's how I'm thinking right now anyway, right? Maybe I'm wrong to think this way, but that's what I see. I could be, like I said, I hope I'm wrong, and I don't think I am, though.
Like there's so many parallels. I don't know if you look at the financial markets at all. But over the last hour or so of our conversation, like I literally pointed out to different things that I've learned in stocks or in finance, where they hedge funds get you to look one way and they're running the other way. So when everyone starts being like, oh wait, we all ran this way, we're capsizing the boat, we're actually supposed to run onto the other side of the boat, and not getting married to any position that might be a losing position, because you might run it down to $0. You have to be able to pivot and say, okay, maybe my original premise wasn't correct purchasing stock X, Y, or Z. Maybe I need to reevaluate and move in a different direction. It's weird how all these things overlap. It's completely different industries, but it's the same premise, that is universally true between being a comic book creator, being a digital, a digital service provider, being a stock trader. All these different axioms, I think, are universally applicable in any different medium, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So we're creatures of story. Okay. So we invest into feelings. I don't know of anything that plays into feelings more than the stock market, to be perfectly honest with you.
True. It's true.
Right. It's all about feeling, right? If I can get enough people to panic about a stock, I can crash it. If I get enough people to feel good about a stock, they'll buy it.
Yeah.
That's how it works. And whether the stock's good or not is actually irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
It's the perception.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why every once in a while you'll get one of these weird stocks that just gets stupid valuable for it. No one can really understand why.
Yeah.
It's the psychology of it.
Yeah.
Right. And then at that point, it's just when the bail. What again? Now again, politically speaking, I'm an atheist. That's how I look at myself politically. It's I have no faith in either anyone political party, organization, or person. I haven't seen enough integrity from anybody to just pick one. So so my strategy now is whatever they tell me to do, I think about doing the opposite. And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Right. Because I haven't been led right on anything for as long as I can remember being alive.
Right.
So why would I trust it? So I mean, again, that's where I'm at. So it's like, okay, if they're telling me spend money, I'm saving it or investing it. If they tell me to not buy, this is the time I should buy, because right. If they tell me not to question, this is the time I should question. If they tell me question, I probably still question that one. I would actually take their advice on. That one actually makes sense. But the basic idea is the same. It's just I've learned that, okay, like I said, people are going to hard times. There's an opportunity to make for people like you and me to make a ton of money in the next 2 years. Advertising is going to become more valuable in the next 2 years, not less, right? So there's a real opportunity to specify and create a market for yourself. And that won't die no matter how bad things get, because there's always people that are going to buy and there's always people that are going to sell. It's just universal. So, I mean, again, but the typical mentality is you batten down the hatches, you spend only when you're going to spend, and depending on how it goes, I'm making money, I'm going to be investing, and I might be buying, right? Because that's the best time to buy as well, because that's when the pandemic happened. A lot of guys that were rich were buying out companies they thought that were good that might be in trouble, because this was the right time to do it, right? So again, they went the opposite way. The conventional wisdom said to go. So all that stuff, man, it makes you think, right? And but it's those axioms, right? Always be flexible, always pivot, be kind, but also be willing to make a stand for yourself when you need to. At the same time, like I said, put out the best service you know how. Take swings at bats. Don't be afraid to fail. All of these they might be considered platitudes to some people, but all this stuff, it applies to comics, it applies to the stock market, it applies to business, it applies to going to school, going to college. I guess it applies to everything, right? These things are tried and true. It's when we don't do these things that we get messed up.
Yeah. I gotta take a moment to breathe all that in, because it's so heavy.
Hey, this is where we went today, so that's cool with that, right?
For sure.
Right, so that's where we went, right? We probably should talk about your book. We probably should. You want to talk about your book?
If you want to, yeah.
No, dude, I'm cool with it. I just again, as if you have listened to the show in the past, I'll go absolutely anywhere with anybody, just wherever we want to go. But it does seem like when we were talking, I didn't realize until we had this, you're a very astute businessman in your own right. So if everything I'm saying, by the way, does everything I say sound sane at least?
Yeah.
For the most part. Okay,
I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. So now you're doing another Kickstarter, right? So actually, you know what you should do, because we should have did this before the show started, but trained professionals that we are, send me the link to your Kickstarter. Send me you just send it to me. So yeah, so this is your latest, right?
Yep. We still got the Heroes for Causes thing going on. We're actually working with the Children's Diabetes Foundation. Side note. So we're excited about that. We already nailed down the characters. We wrote the script, and now we're doing the art part. So that one is looking like September. But in the meantime, we did this fun all ages / kids book with Nicholas Touris. He did Franklin and Ghost and stuff with Garrett Gunn. Did a bunch of Source Point books. Super talented. All of his art is animation style art, almost like Scotty Young. Just very vibrant, lots of expressions. It has some manga influence in there, just the way that the characters' expressions are and stuff like that. But we actually revamped a story. You might be able to relate to this. You write a story, you set it aside, and you don't really know which way to go with it. And kind of like your story you were talking about, you're set off to do a poem, and then it kind of became a novel, right? You didn't know it was going to take you in that direction, but it did. And that maybe wasn't the diamond mine that you expected, but it's a diamond mine that you ended up with. And that's kind of where this was for Nick. It was a project that got backburnered. And then I kind of saw it. I was like, what if it was like Invader Zim? What if the characters were eccentric? What if they were over the top? What if their personalities were clashing? What if we did a buddy story? And that's kind of what it evolved into. Two completely polar opposite personalities that clash, get thrown into this pickle together, and they got to find a way to deal with one another to help each other get back home. So it's I think it's the best parts of like Adventure Time and Wreck-It Ralph. There's a lot of books you read, and you're like, what's the deeper meaning, behind this? So I think that if you read this book and you reread it, you realize it's not just a kid's comic. You realize there's a lot of life lessons, kind of some of the ones that we actually talked about for the past hour or so. Setting aside differences, being able to adapt, being able to be like, okay, well, it was my way or the highway. And then I ran into these extenuating circumstances. Someone else had a little bit of wisdom. I took it to heart, and I was better off because of it. So, it's all those things. And I think that it's not where it started off, but it's where it ended up, right?
Oh yeah, no, that's and sometimes too with the story, you're not, when you write it, you're like, I got it. Now what do I do with it? And you're not sure. You're just not ready for whatever reason. It's just not quite ready yet. And then you come back, put it aside for a while. You think about it. You do some other stuff. You come back, look at it with a fresh set of eyes, and you're like, oh wow, this is really cool. Now what if? And then suddenly down the answer's right there. Yeah. I have a novel. One of my novels I'm working on right now is that. It's like when I first wrote it, it's like, this is a really cool concept. What the hell do I do with it? And then
how much space did you have from when you originally drafted it to where you picked it back up?
In this case, now about a year.
A year?
Yeah, about a year. Because so I also got the opportunity. There's someone I really want to work with this in the comic community. So I'm a big fan of Darwin Cook's Parker novels. Like, I'm a big fan of those. I want to do one of my own, right? Because those are freaking sweet. So, right, again, some of those cool little things. Hey, wait, I'm publishing it on my own. What do I want to do? I want to do that because that was freaking sweet, or something along those lines anyway. And I found the right person I wanted to work with on that. So it's like, okay. So now I got to retell, like, go back and finish the story up. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly where I want to go. And now I've added some. So I made Percival an evil genie / Rasputin, a master. So what if Percival was like a used car salesman and you won the punch in the face and the ability to grant your wishes at a price? And then my main character is trying to kill him. So, I mean, it's a really fun story about a good person. But when I wrote it initially, that wasn't the idea I had. It became this, right? Because I gave it that space, right? Sometimes the story needs space. Sometimes it just does, right? You're just not ready to finish telling that story for whatever reason.
Yeah, and part of that could be, life experiences or where you're at, with your own maturity or personal growth. But yeah, sometimes we just get so stuck in our own head because, your eyes, when you look out, those are the eyes you look out of all day long. It's hard for you to get a different and a fresh perspective. So a lot of editors, especially ones that edit, fiction and stuff, they say, take a step back from your own work, almost like out of your body if you can. Or look at it from a fresh set of eyes. And that's why editors are so invaluable, right? Because they can look at Josh's book, they can read it, they can be like, hey, these two things or these three things, stuck out to me right away. And you're like, man, I read those like literally 100 times self-editing, and I never caught those. Or, they could be like, these two things, like, incredibly valuable. They stuck with me, and that was the hook for me with your book. And you'd be like, that little thing? Like, I never intended that to be, what you're saying it was, but because it became that, you would never know that by reading that same paragraph over 100 times.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's yeah. So when my editor looks at me and goes, Josh, why did you do this? And I'm sure you've been in this position yourself. Joe, why did you write this? And you look, I did not write that. And you look, oh, I did write that. Oh, yeah. So I'm sorry. What happened? I was silly. That's it. I was very, 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 very silly, and I thank you, editors rule. Just for the record, guys, editors do rule. But it sounds like this is just a fun, like you're having fun. Like that's what this book was. You decided, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna have some fun with this.
Yeah, so I did a couple serious books early on, 8-10 years ago, zombie books and stuff. And I looked at myself. I'm like, man, I was such a poser. Like I was trying to do the Walking Dead thing. Just I wanted to have a successful book. I was writing stories that had underlying meaning of something that was valuable to me. Bullying and the feeling of aloneness. But I was like, why don't I just do one that's happy? That just it's fun to do. It's fun to be part of this world. You made some really zany characters. If you've ever watched Powerpuff Girls,
Yes,
it's like all of the wonderful villains that they throw in there that are so zany and off the wall. Like we just wanted to capture them. So we have like evil robotic divas and a girl that's like the Rugrats Angelica. She's just so bossy. Like she is the queen of all these robotic divas in this diva town. And it's just we have rock star trees and country bumpkins that are pumpkins. These things like just they were organic, right? And what you're talking about is just be yourself. I think this is my silliness that came out. Nicholas too, but he's just so expressive with his art that it was a good match. And then these things just kind of sprang to life, and they were totally unexpected.
So, I actually am a bit of a Powerpuff Girls fan. My favorite my favorite villains were Mojo Jojo
Okay.
and him. They were my favorites. I love the take on the devil. Like I just like the fact that he's got like this whimsical voice. So he's really
The claw.
angry. Yeah, the claw was good. Although my favorite episode, my favorite short of the Powerpuff Girls, I'm going to say straight up, is when the Gangrene Gang prank called all the villains, and then when him went to complain, he realized it was the Gangrene Gang, and they actually kicked the crap out of them. I thought that was a great episode. And all of which to say, see, sometimes you want a serious book. Sometimes you want, I don't know if you've read him, Terry Pratchett.
Terry Pratchett. Discworld.
Yes. Sometimes you just want a Discworld. You don't want. Terry Pratchett can be very serious sometimes, and when he is serious, it's actually amazing. His comedy really works for that. But what he actually is this like really, dude. Death shows up in the weirdest of places and everything. He's having as much like he had so much fun writing those, and you could tell. And I had a lot of fun reading those, as you can tell. Sometimes all you want is just a fun read. Like you don't. It doesn't need to be the biggest thing. Sometimes it's like, you know what? This is fun. Fuck it. This is fun. I'm gonna do it. I mean, I'm gonna have rock star divas. I'm gonna have rock star trees. I'm gonna have robotic divas. I'm gonna have like the evilest like person involved picking on robots. So when the robots revolt, you're actually like, yeah, right? You're gonna have that little moment, right? And because at the end of the day, show me a person that doesn't want to have fun, and I will show you a liar. Or I will show you a very miserable human being. One or the other, right? Like, I will show you a liar. You are lying to me. I will find your funny bone, and we'll make it come out. But it's just like, and that's it, right? Those sometimes are the best books. Like again, you don't. My favorite comic, like my favorite, it's like not so serious comic. But and this was partly because of the nostalgia feel, I'll grant you, but it was still really good. Was Darkwing Duck when Darkwing Duck came back for a boom, and then they went to another company for a little bit. Oh, that was just silly. Like it wasn't the most serious book on the shelves by any means, or even Invader Zim. Invader Zim, the comic, that thing, man. Let's talk about taking swings at every bat. That book swings at some of those issues are terrible. Are amazing. It's just like the Invader Zim cartoon, right? You just are like some of them when they were good, they were really, really good.
Yeah.
When they were off a wall a little too, like they kind of went over the deep. They tried.
Yeah.
They had fun the whole time. And the thing about fun is fun's also contagious. You know, if it's a fun enough book, people are gonna be like, this is just super freaking cool. And also, when you go back to your heroes with causes down the road, this is a bit of a palate cleanser for you too. He's like, you know what? I had some fun. I could like this is cool for me. The Misadventurers comic, right, 1 and 2, right? You can go back to this in between serious rounds, and you'd be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with the seriousness of some of the problems of the world.
Yeah.
I want rocks. I want evil divas. I want like really random villains just because, and because that's what makes it fun. It
Yeah.
just does, right?
Yeah, it's like I can't remember the first time I watched Powerpuff Girls, but I think it was just the fact of I don't have to invest too much emotionally or physically. Like I can just sit there and passively enjoy this and feel like I'm a kid again. And it's kind of like watching a new re-release of Masters of the Universe or whatever. I can be a kid again for that half hour, that hour, that escapism that you were talking about, and I don't have to, think too hard or invest too much in myself. And it just is what it is. It's zany, it's silly, it's a fun romp through that half hour, and it was entertaining for that time.
I still remember Buttercup's silly haircut. That's the other one I remember a lot. Where even the villain was laughing at her because she just looked so ridiculous. Giant, like eyeball thing, just looked and could not keep a straight face. No one could because her sisters decided to cut her hair in the middle of the night. She wakes up. And even the professor, although the professor, he was a saint. He was a saint. He was able to keep a straight face while she was there. But the moment she was gone, he broke. Like, you just, like, that's the thing. It's just human enough you get it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all sometimes you want. And those are sometimes some of the very best books out there. Look, as someone that takes himself as seriously as I do, as you can tell, we take ourselves very seriously here. I love good, zany fun because really, I mean, it's some of the best fun you can have.
Craig McCracken, the guy behind Powerpuff Girls, like I didn't know how many other series on Cartoon Network that were released during the that 90s window, 2000s, that he was actually part of in some way. Director or producer or illustrator or concept artist, like literally probably dozens of shows during the 90s and 2000s cartoons, and they all had that feel, right? That zany, quirky feel. And he did a lot of work with Gennady Tartakovsky. So I think they worked together on Jack, on Dexter's Laboratory, and a bunch of those other cartoons that came out during that same window. But they were all that just zany, silly, fun, and it was what it was.
Samurai Jack is my favorite of that run. It is totally my favorite of that run. I think Aku is one of the best villains ever. Actually, I think he's one of the best villains ever because, well, I just love that. Okay, so do you remember the episode where they agreed to actually wrestle each other?
What do you remember? What season it was from?
It's like 2 or 3. So they agree to wrestle. So the conditions were they set some conditions. Aku couldn't use his powers, couldn't shapeshift, couldn't he had to be a man. He had to be a man. Aku agreed. In return, Jack would not bring his sword to this fight. This would be just these two hand to hand for fun. My favorite scene though is when they talk about the place. Because Aku picked the place, Jack agreed and was like, "Oh crap, how am I going to get there?" And Aku was like, "Listen, I'll take you there. I'm good with that. Like, I'm not gonna like I'll just take you. It's fine by me. Right? You can bring the I don't care." It's like, no, I'll figure it out. Like, it was. I think the cool thing about Aku was he was an evil bad guy, but him and Jack respected each other, and that's why the show worked.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the typical, oh my, I mean, yes, Aku was afraid of Jack. But at the same time, he respected Jack for what even he himself put Jack through. He's like, this guy is top son, like he's a worthy foe. And vice versa. Right? You sent me through time, you put me through, like, yeah, I kind of want to kill you, don't get me wrong, but there's a respect there between these two, and I really like. I love that. That show was great. That show was phenomenally great. I think it was the best 90s cartoon, not the Disney afternoon. So that's just my
the voice of Aku. I was watching Dexter's Laboratory or Powerpuff Girls or something, and I was like, "That's the voice of Aku." It was, I forget who did it, but it was the same the voice they had in one or two of the other cartoons that we had mentioned. And you don't realize that until you watch one episode of that, and then you go and watch an episode of Jack, and you're like, "Whoa!" Like mind blown kind of a moment.
Yeah, no, like of that era, it's Jack for me, and then it's the Disney afternoon because I'm still 12, and yeah, and Darkwing Duck puns will never get old ever. So that's just me. So hey, I think this is a good spot to end it. I mean, we talked some serious success stuff at the beginning, and we ended on Samurai Jack. I think that's a good spot.
It's a win. That's a win in my book.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you can't want to have fun, or if you don't like Samurai Jack. All right, so we'll reiterate this one more time. Just we'll make this shorter. Yes. Oh, yes, that's amazing. I love that. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So tell me, what's the concept? Like one more time, like an elevator pitch this, and how people can find you.
On Kickstarter we have until 8 p.m. tomorrow. So the Misadventurers, it's a zany romp. It's a buddy comedy. Viking princess and a wannabe sorcerer get thrown into a big mess, and they got to get home before dinner time, so to speak. Our Viking princess Marius is trying to get back for the Viking games, and our sorcerer apprentice Jiminy wants to get back so he can graduate middle school. And along, it's about the journey, right? So the journey, they have to put their differences aside, fight some zany characters like robotic divas and rock star trees and country pumpkins, and get back in one piece before dinner. So it's just silly. It was organic. We had a lot of fun with it. We hope you do too if you decide to check it out. Money back guarantee if you don't like it. Guarantee it. No.
Fair enough. So how can people find you?
I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Joseph A. Michael. And then we also have a Facebook page for the Misadventurers as well.
All right. So that will do it for this conversation, ladies. I want to thank Joe for coming in on such short notice. But anyway, this is my advertising services page, folks. If you need to promote a project, a story, a music, video game, whatever, or yourself, I will make videos, audio, graphics, words, all about your project and yourself, inspiring the confidence to talk about your projects wherever. And on top of that, use my platforms to also help market your stuff. So therefore, that is available now. You can definitely check that out. And that will do it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Tomorrow, I have a very fun guest. I have Eric Bell from the band Hellsot. He's coming tomorrow night. It's going to be fun. Finally chat with him. I had death in the family, so I had to miss. And the week prior to that, he lost his voice. So it was just like, So to hopefully, tomorrow, finally get that conversation in. But everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.